All right, so I guess I need to talk into this microphone because we're being live streamed, right? Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. I guess it's still morning time here, yeah. So thank you for joining us this morning. We are really excited to give you a sneak peek, top secret look at a very special project that we've been working on. We've been working on the national standards for quality online learning, more specifically the national standards for quality online teaching, online programs, and online courses. Particularly, this is focused on K-12, but feedback we've had so far seems to be that it is applicable to many different situations. So we're glad to have you here today. We're real proud of the work that we've done, and we're happy to share it with you and get some feedback from you all today. So while this presentation is called First Look, New National Standards to Benchmark Quality Online Learning, let's see if my clicker is going to work. Guess I should have tested that out. I like to call this the future of the national standards for quality online learning. What your magic 8-ball won't tell you. And I'll tell you why in just a little bit. But this is a joint partnership between two organizations, Quality Matters and the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance, which is a nonprofit formed of 14 right now, I believe, right, Rhonda? 14 statewide virtual schools. And if you haven't looked at their website, please do so. So they are vlaonline.org. So you can check out their site as well. But we've been doing a lot of work and a lot of including a large community of people to help with this. So my name is Christine Voelker. I am the K-12 Program Director for Quality Matters. I have some people here today who are going to help out with this presentation. So Annette Walaszek from Wisconsin Virtual School, Joe Friedhoff, who's here from Michigan Virtual, and Jennifer Kolar-Burden, who's here from Illinois Virtual. So they're here to help out as well. They were all integral in this project, so we thank them for their help. Oh, I keep forgetting, okay. All right, so when I first started thinking about this presentation, and I actually put this presentation in for another conference as well, and I had entitled it The Magic 8-Ball, right? With the future of the national standards for online learning. And so I thought, well, there has to be a story here. And I didn't really know much about the Magic 8-Ball when I first started all this. Now, I can tell you anything you want to know about the Magic 8-Ball. I've learned a lot. And so I wanted to first start off with, when I was doing research on the Magic 8-Ball, I did learn that a lot of people really take the Magic 8-Ball seriously. I mean, even down to like major life decisions, like how should I take this job? And they go to the Magic 8-Ball. It's decidedly so. So, you know, they put a lot of, I don't know, they take a lot of, you know, credit from these Magic 8-Balls. So I was learning all that, and I thought, I need to know more about the history. So I thought it was worth sharing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the magic history, or I'm going to let YouTube tell you. Ooh, maybe. Maybe not. Hang on just a second. This is going to drive me nuts. Ah, okay.
It starts with a yes or no question. Does she have a crush on me? Will I pass the test? Will the Mets win the World Series? While they may not have always predicted the truth, Magic 8-Balls are actually inspired by a real-life clairvoyant.
Do you want to hear your fortune?
In the 1940s, Mary Carter was a popular medium, best known for her mysterious fortune-telling invention. It was called the psycho slate, essentially a chalkboard with a cover. When the clients would visit, Mary would ask a question to the spirits. The room would fill with the sound of scribbling, and then, just like poof, magic, Mary would reveal answers from another world mysteriously written on the chalkboard. Mary's son, Albert, was inspired by his mother and created his own truth-seeking device. But this time, you didn't need a psychic to tell you your fortune. He put a pair of worded dice inside a tube filled with molasses. Each end was clear so you could read the answers. Sound familiar? Albert hit the streets. He partnered with a couple local businessmen and opened a novelty company where they specialized in the miracle home fortune teller. After he died, Albert's partners took over and redesigned the project numerous times. They ended up with a crystal ball-like shape with a die in the middle, and a billiards company took note. They needed a promotional item, so they replaced the crystal ball with the iconic black 8-ball. The promotion was so successful that they rebranded the Magic 8-Ball, this time marketing it as a fortune-telling toy. Today, kids are still using Magic 8-Balls to ask for their fortunes. And for that, you can thank Mary the Clairvoyant.
Ah, yes.
So little did you know, that's how the Magic 8-Ball came about. So it did take many forms throughout the years, as you saw in that little video. So first it was like a cylinder shape, and then it turned more into like this kind of shape because I think it was more cost effective, and the packaging even took different, forms. So Magic 8-Ball, it looked like this for a while. Then it looked like this. Took on this iconic form that you see here today. So Mary the Clairvoyant, her sons, I think that is Abe and Art. So Abe and Art, they were pretty legendary in their time because they took her design and they started to work with it and make something really different out of it. So these were some of their early patents, right? So they had these patents for it. And it's changed somewhat, but in some ways it hasn't changed. So as I was doing research, believe me, lots and lots of people take the time to take apart Magic 8-Balls. They are so intrigued by what's inside this thing, you wouldn't even know it. If you go on YouTube, there are so many videos of people cracking these things open. So a lot of things have changed with the Magic 8-Ball, but some things haven't. And so while the Magic 8-Ball has taken, a lot of different forms, it's still pretty much, down to the same core. So I think all of you are probably sitting there thinking, why is she talking about a Magic 8-Ball? I'm talking about a Magic 8-Ball because, as you're going to find out, the standards, the national standards for quality online learning are taking a different form and shape as well. And so I'm going to be making some comparisons there to the Magic 8-Ball for that reason. And so Annette, do you want to go over the objectives?
Certainly. So when we put this proposal in back in April, this is what we were hoping for, and how cool that I'm up here saying this is what's going to be able to happen. So we're going to describe the standards, and we're also going to talk about the process that was used in getting there. We're going to relate them to what quality means in your programs. We want to make this very practical. And so when you're thinking, as we actually get a chance to dive into these, how cool, you're going to be able to think about how you can apply these as well as give us some feedback about this first look.
All right, thanks. Okay, so you might be sitting there, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and some of you might not have much experience in using these three standard sets that are up there on your screen. So these are the INACOL, the International Association for Online Learning. They have three sets of standards. One is the National Standards for Quality Online Teaching, the National Standards for Quality Online Programs, and the National Standards for Quality Online Courses. These standards have really been the benchmark for K-12 online learning for quite some time. And while they've been the benchmark for quite some time, at the same time, they haven't been revised in quite some time. So a lot of us were sitting, out there in our various programs thinking, you know, this one hasn't been revised since 2009. This one hasn't been revised since 2010. Well, when is this going to be done? So in various conversations, it led to, where is this? Oh. Okay, so in various conversations, it actually led to a partnership between, as I said earlier, the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance and Quality Matters to actually revise these national standard sets. And so that is our labor of love that we've been working on since about January of this year. So we've been taking a lot of time and effort and putting a lot into this. So what we want to know first of all is, which of the national standards sets do you use the most? So you're going to use this poll everywhere. So if you haven't used poll everywhere, what you do is you text to the number 22333. So you put in 22333, and then in the text body, you will put Christine VOE 705. That will attach you to this particular poll. And then once you're in this particular poll, you can text the letter A, B, or C, depending on which standard sets you use the most or which one you're the most interested in. Okay, excellent. So those of you who selected B, you're in luck, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But I am going to move on for the interest of time. So now you will see that these will take on new leadership. And so now these will be continually revised by the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance and Quality Matters. So I can tell you a little bit about that planning that started way back, probably around this time last year. So what we did first was we started with some preliminary surveys. And these were just surveys to find out from the community about which standards were they using the most. And in particular, if they were using the national standards for online teaching and the national standards for online programs, which standards were they using the most? Because we knew that our community didn't use every single standard. And we knew that some of them were being replaced by people creating their own standards in there. Some of them were used, you know, quite often, all the time. They were more popular than other standards. And we wanted to know why, and we wanted to know which ones of those they were. And so we did a preliminary survey out to our community. And some of you may have taken part in that survey. And so we got the feedback from that survey. And the reason I say in particular the national standards for online programs and online teaching is because those two were the standard sets that we chose to work on first. And the reason for that was because the Quality Matters K-12 rubrics were slated to be revised in 2019. And so we wanted to do that in tandem. And so we did those two standard set first. And thank goodness we did, because that was an awful lot to bite off at one time. And so we did those two standard set first. And then after I get back from this conference, we're going to be starting to work on the course standards. And so that's where we are with those. So we took that feedback back to our leadership team, which is actually the next thing that I wanted to tell you about was our leadership team. And I actually have someone from our leadership team here in this room, and he has agreed to share some of his wisdom about the leadership team and why we gathered it together.
Thanks. Yeah, so my name is Joe Friedoff. I work at Michigan Virtual. I'm a vice president there. I don't know how many people sit on our leadership team, but probably close to 10 or 12, would you say?
I think it's 12.
Yeah. The purpose of the leadership team really was to bring together experts across the country who are implementing these programs and usually reflect diverse types of programs. You know, some, all of us in K-12, some are full-time, some are part-time, some have their own teaching staff, others don't. Some create content, others don't. And bringing together an eclectic mix was really important. We also, you know, it's an interesting thing. We're talking about national standards, but I remember some of the conversations get really political because when we're talking about these standards in certain states, these are written into legislation. We have, in Michigan, for instance, these standards are used as part of our course access program. So any school district that wants to offer courses to students statewide follow the INACOL standards for courses. In Florida, it's written into the legislation directly. And so the group of experts that we're able to bring together have a set of knowledge that isn't in any one person, and I think help to bring some things together. The leadership team also tried to tackle things like the instrument creation. So Christine talked a little bit about getting a survey of data. You know, we talked about who needs to be on there. How do we bring our social networks together to bring really great reviewers? And what do we do with this content? The content itself can be, we had lots of conversations about how much should it be standard versus diverse. I'm guessing if we went around the room, and if you're in this class or in this session, you're probably doing something with online, there'd be things that overlap that are common to our programs and things that are different. Do you want me to kind of get into that flexibility now or wait?
Wait just a moment.
Okay. So, you know, we have a lot of discussions on the leadership team about how are these standards going to be used, and in particular, how do we direct the teams and put in a framework for the teams that are going to actually do the revision work so that it's facilitated the easiest. So we try to understand what are likely questions to come up. We talked about structure that would be most useful for the field of those of us who are consuming and working with these frequently. And so we meet quite frequently to just kind of continue the momentum around this space and provide and answer questions that get surfaced from the teams that will probably be talked about later. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so as Joe mentioned, we do meet quite frequently. We meet about bi-weekly. We have a standing meeting, and we do have a Basecamp site where we do have some various discussion threads that take place in between those meetings. So a lot of things do crop up, and that's a good place for us to have those conversations. Okay, so we do have that leadership team. And then one of the first things that we did was a literature review. And so we did conduct a literature review for the teaching and program standard sets. That was conducted, those two were conducted by QM. So our research department helped with that. You can find those on our research website. So you can find those on the research tab, those literature reviews. So if you're interested in those, you can take a look. But we did take, there they are. So we did take that feedback back to our work groups. And so those work groups were chaired by co-chairs. And so we had two chairs for each of the different standard sets. So we had two co-chairs so we had co-chairs for the teaching standards, co-chairs for the program standards. And each of those co-chairs oversaw a work group of between 25 and 40 members. So each of those standard sets had work group members of between 25 and 40 members. And as Joe mentioned, those also took on a diverse, community, a bunch of members from our community. And so they came from all walks, from public institutions, private institutions, nonprofits, for-profits. So we really wanted to get that diverse perspective. And so those chairs were selected, and then we reached out to our community and we formed those work groups. And this was all volunteer-based, and the work is still going. But one of the pieces that I did want to talk about was this magic 8-ball again. And I did want to talk about how flexible this magic 8-ball is. Because the magic 8-ball, while it has always been kind of for a long time in the format that you see right here, it's also been in other formats, like this giant 8-ball. But not only that, a Super Mario 8-ball. Not only that, a Minecraft 8-ball. An emoji 8-ball. I had no idea that all these 8-balls existed. A Frozen 8-ball. One for Rosh Hashanah. There's even an app for the magic 8-ball. Last time I did this session, a lot of people started pulling up the app for the magic 8-ball. Even, one for your Apple Watch. And then last but not least, there is a magic 8-ball costume. And I toyed with the idea of wearing that costume yesterday, but I thought, probably not such a good look. So I wanted to bring that up because we kept that flexibility in mind when we started talking to the work groups about their revisions of the standards. And Joe, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier that we had quite a diverse group of people who sit on the leadership team, and even more diverse who sit on the standards review teams. And that value of not having kind of homogeneous grouping of what the programs look like led to lots of conversations about, well, does this cover blended? Does it cover full-time? Does it cover supplemental? What are the indicators or the evidence that we look for this standard versus other? Is it written in such a way that is prescriptive and everyone has to follow and everything has to look the same way, or is it written in some ways that can allow people to bring more diverse forms of evidence to ask to satisfy it? And that became really, at least at one level, very philosophical. It's the challenge of, well, what good is a standard if anything can meet it, right? But we recognize that there is a huge need for different groups that use these standards, and in the maturation of the process, kind of phase one is about creating the standards, but we're also looking as we move down the road to think about how that lives on in other kinds of like, again, indicators. Look for other assets that might wrap around the standards to give people who are running alternative education, full-time programs, the difference between ones that are running blended programs. And so that is kind of at the forefront of how we're reviewing the standards, how we look for it, but then also how after the fact we might be able to communicate to people the application measures of using those standards that might be fit best for their program, and what pieces of evidence we might suggest would be look for their specific program.
Okay, so one of the things we also discussed and decided was that one of the big things lacking in the current national standards were these explanations and examples. And so that was something that we had talked about and discussed, and that we wanted to provide to the community as well. And I didn't mention earlier, probably the biggest thing is that these will be Creative Commons licensed. And so we wanted our community to be able to really be able to apply them. And so Jennifer Kolar-Burden was on the teaching standards work group, and she's going to talk a little bit about this explanations and examples.
So I worked on standards A and E of the teaching standards along with my co-chair Jeff Simmons at Idaho Digital Learning. Shout out to Jeff. And we had a really great team. Joe talked about the diversity of our team. So we had some people from higher ed, some people at the government level, we're on the K-12 level. So we had a really good perspective as to how would the different users use this rubric. The other good thing was we had also worked on the Quality Matters rubric revision back in 2015, 2016. And we knew that Quality Matters rubric was something that we were kind of using as somewhat of a template as far as adding these practical explanations and practical examples. So what we did first was we went through all of them together as a group, and then we broke up into 2 groups, one for each standard, 3 and 3. And then we met weekly. We worked on it on our own, and then we came back as a whole group weekly, and we just really churned through each general standard and each substandard. We tried to decide, what does this mean? I mean, a lot of the times we were just discussing, philosophically, okay, what is the goal of this standard? And then how can we cut that language down to make it reasonable and understandable for anybody to understand, okay, this is what this standard is asking you to do or to prove. And then once we got the language kind of changed around a little bit, a little more practical, then we went into, okay, what are the different ways that somebody would use this standard? Well, they would use it in this situation, or if they're in a blended, they're going to use it this way, or if they're in high school, they're going to use it this way. If they're in higher ed, they're going to use it this way because they teach a little bit differently. And so again, back to the diversity of perspectives, we were able to glean all these different use cases from all the different people on our group, and then come up with some practical examples of how you would actually do that. And so that was probably the most difficult part, were the practical examples, because we wanted to provide the sweet spot of not too many examples, not the kitchen sink being thrown in there, but enough examples to show that flexibility so that, again, someone could see themselves actually using that standard. So I guess overall, we were trying to get the standards practical and usable for multiple of different situations. And one of the interesting things that we did that I thought I would mention, because I don't know if I'm mentioning it later, is when we did the Quality Matters revision, we stuck to that rubric. But when we did these, the revision of these standards, of the teaching standards, we found that there was a bit of redundancy in different standards. And so we luckily got the green light from the leadership team that we were allowed to delete standards and combine standards. And so what you're getting in the end is not just like a revamp of what was existing before, but you're actually getting, in some cases, completely new standards, which is great. And so we're happy with that.
Okay, so I did want to tell you when these are slated to be released. And so the National Standards for Quality Online Teaching and the National Standards for Quality Online Programs, those are slated to be released in January of 2019. And so the phase that we're in right now is the draft phase for these. And so what you'll be seeing is a second round draft. These have now gone to about 30 reviewers who volunteered their time and provided feedback on these standards. And so that's where we are with the teaching standards. The program standards, they will be going out to reviewers in the next couple of weeks. And so those will be going out to about 30 reviewers again, some who have reviewed the teaching standards, some who have not. So we're trying to get that consistency across the board, across the standard sets as well. And so they'll be doing their revision, and then these are slated to be released in January of 2019. Our website is up there on the screen. On every slide, you'll see our website. And so you can go there. It is still a work in progress. We kind of raced to get it done before another conference last week. So we have some things up there, but that's where you will see all the latest and greatest. So you can keep heading there, and we'll keep you updated on the progress at that site. In September of 2019, that is when the National Standards for Quality Online Courses are slated to be released. So keep an eye out for that as well. So that's where we are with those. In addition, I did want to say that both of our organizations, the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance and Quality Matters, we've committed to a continuous improvement process for these standard sets. And so we will be revising these on a continual basis using volunteers from our community, of course. So if you're interested, let us know. So this is the website. It actually looks a little different from this now because, like I said, it's continuing to be worked on. So when I was researching the Magic 8 Ball, back to that, because I can't get enough, apparently, of this Magic 8 Ball, I did learn that there are different categories of responses, and there's all different possible answers that you could get from the Magic 8 Ball. So some of them are negative, some of them are affirmative, some of them are non-committal. So we wanted to hear some of your feedback on these national standards. So the moment we hope you've all been waiting for has arrived. So Annette, do you want to walk them through what we're going to do next?
Absolutely. So we are going to be taking a look at the standards in groups. And because we wanted to make sure that everybody really got a good opportunity to take a look at standards and kind of dive into what these look like, to get an idea of how the program standards will look and how the course standards will look, we're going to split you up. So if you have Kit Kat, can you raise your hand if you have Kit Kat, or raise your wrapper? Okay. If you still have your candy, good for you. And start with standard D. And what candy is that, Jen? Standard D?
Oh, it's gummy bear.
Oh, okay. So,
My hair about, because there's like 3 different.
okay, and then, okay, so we've kind of split it up so that you'll get the opportunity to be able to just look at a subset. So where should we put them in the room, guys? What are you thinking? Okay, all right, so you're going to stay where you are, but your candy is going to key you to where you're going to start and where you're going to stop.
Does anyone still need candy? Second opinion candy?
I'll have a second.
So it looks like everyone's getting their copies. Excellent. So if you would start with where you were supposed to be based on your candy, read over the standards that you are responsible for. We also have a Padlet. So if you would go to tinyurl.com/QM-NSQ, you will be able to kind of keep track of what you're learning, seeing, what you want to comment on as you're going through the standards. And so that's the part we're at now. Just to kind of give you a preview of where we're going with this though, and of course if you're watching this over our web conference, you've got the place to go to get to the standards, and you've also got our Padlet. And then what we're going to ask you to do is get together with like candy people, and you are going to try and summarize, a 3-sentence summary, what you're seeing, what you're noticing kind of as a group. Are there any questions? Oh, the candy went back up? Yes, and we now have a time, 15 minutes. Okay, oh.
At 10 minutes, we'll stop you to
Get into the groups. Okay, so at 10 minutes, we'll stop you to get into the groups. Virtual people can choose their virtual candy that is their most favorite.
Yep, those are yours.
At this point, you can kind of move on to number 3 here, which is to start to share some of your individual observations with the rest of your candy mates.
So how do you want them?
Should we put,
Put Kit Kat somewhere.
Yeah, we'll just do Kit Kats and the gummy bears and then.
How about Kit Kats in the back then?
Kit Kat's in the back.
okay, there you go. Hold up your candy and we'll decide where. Kit Kat, stand up.
Kit Kats over there. John, can you stand with your Kit Kats? Kit Kats over there.
They're Annette.
Where am I at? Oh, great.
Oh, Annette.
Kit Kat's in the back. M&M's over here with Fernando.
Where are the gummy bear people? Oh, gummy bear up front over here. Look at that. That's what group.
Yes.
Classic.
Share with your group and come up with a short little summary about the standards and indicators that you were assigned.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
I might send them a little bit late to lunch.
With a note, of course.
Yes. Yeah, they can go to the front of the line. I don't know.
Mitzi's my groupie.
about 2 minutes left in our groups. We could try to figure out that short little report out, maybe 2 key sentences about what you want to share.
I'll call him yourself. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm going to count down from 10. Final thoughts. Point at the person who's going to do the 3 sentences. And that was counting down from 10. Gummy bears, where are you? Gummy bears, are you ready? Can you give us a 3-sentence summary, please? And the poor person standing up gets, go for it.
We see challenges with students really with learner agency and giving choice.
Oh,
And
sorry, hang on a second. We didn't follow
Sorry.
instructions.
For our online, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gummy bears, and we're looking at D2 and D3 and looking at the learner agency and giving students options and some empowerment over their education. And one thing that was discussed is sometimes we're limited to our technologies and our LMS and how we can properly deliver those options to the students based on what technologies we're using. So with Canvas, we have Mastery Pass, but there is some limitations to that. Like Mastery Pass can allow students to go down different pathways, but then they don't allow due dates. So we had to pull those out because it didn't work for our environment. So the challenge of creating learner agency and allowing them choice is a challenge.
Thank you very much. And what I heard there is that lots of ideas, lots of completeness in the standards, but maybe some differences between how we'll all be able to implement them. And so if you would hand the microphone to M&Ms, were M&Ms back in the back? Oh, M&Ms were over here actually. So who's going to speak for the M&Ms? Please.
We, in our 2 minutes we had, we talked about how we have different groups here. We have full-time online, we have higher ed, we have K-12, and these standards seem to apply to all the groups. So even the higher ed people said these would apply to what they're doing. Some of the first of G had a lot to do with course design, and we talked about there's probably an overlap. We haven't seen the course design standards, but there's probably a little bit of an overlap there. But as you get in further into G and H especially, it really focused on looking at that data and applying that to teaching, which we really liked.
So across the board, not just K-12. And if someone from the KitKat group would come over and take the mic here, and we'll have our final share out. Thank you, Rhonda, for
Again, we only had a couple minutes, so I hope somebody from my group will let me know if I misrepresent what we talked about. We talked about A3, maybe focusing on some things that would be hard to externally demonstrate, that being self-reflective is internal and lifelong learning can be internal, so that can be difficult. We talked about the fact that in some of the examples, we learn a lot of terminology that might be a heavy lift for people who are new to the field. And then we said that A5 and A6, we didn't really see the difference between those two. Was that?
And so that's amazing in 2 minutes. That was some wonderful feedback. So just some comments about some of the things that we're trying to accomplish with the standards, which is that consistency and those good examples. So thank you very much for that. And are we now?
Well, okay, so if you would like to stay in the loop, we do have a form, an interest form, and we can keep you abreast of all of the different updates to the standards. And if you would like to serve as a volunteer on any of these standard groups, you can let us know through that form, or you can come and talk to me as well. So that form is there on the screen. It's also on the nsqol.org website, so you can get there on that website as well. I see some pictures being taken. Okay, so this is the moment you've all been waiting for. We are going to do a random drawing for these magic 8 balls. I, of course, already know who is going to win. But I do need you to know that there are some restrictions from the TSA. So they did have this on their website. So thank you, Medina. If Medina's in the room, she sent me this screenshot of the TSA website. And this is actually what they say. So keep that in mind if you are headed home via air. Because we know what's inside that magic 8 ball now. Okay, so on the back of your standards, there is a number in the right-hand bottom corner. Oh, you might want one for the number.
So that was the advantage.
Well, we have more. You can have a number. So Annette's going to randomly draw in her random number generator.
29.
29. Woohoo! All right. 21. All right.
And lucky 13.
13. Okay, so thank you all very, very much. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself. My partner in crime is up there on the screen as well. He is the other project manager for this project from the Virtual Learning Leadership Alliance. That's Butch Gamin. You can reach out to either him or myself, and we'll be happy to answer any questions and, more importantly, get you involved. So thank you very much for coming today, and we hope you enjoy your lunch.